So, in one of the previous classes, we have talked about Zhuang Tzu has told a story about the shadows. So, this is a similar story, but in this chapter, it's the story is more extended. So, this is about the shadow. The shadow, it also has a shadow, and the Chinese name for shadow is Wang Liang. Wang Liang. Wang Liang. Shadow. What is a shadow? You may never have heard about it before. But so sometimes you may have noticed that our shadow, the darker part, if you look carefully, it's just the outside of that darker shadow that seems to be a little less dark, but it's still almost outer part of that shadow. So it's not as dark, but it's still almost darker. So the Chinese think that the shadow, that's kind of cute, right? So the shadow, Wang Liang, asked the shadow asked the shadow, he said, you know, I noticed that before you were looking down and now you're looking up. So he says, before your hair was all bound up into a bun. So he says, now you let it hang loose. So before you were sitting, and now you were standing up. And before you were walking, now you're standing still. So the shadow noticed all these actions that of the shadow. So he asked, why is this? Why do you do what you do? What controls your actions? And shadow replied to his shadow, saying, why do you bother to ask me such things? Why do you ask me? I have no idea. I have no idea. I do them, but I don't know why. So I am like the shell of a cicada. The shell of a cicada. I don't know if you've seen a cicada. The larvae form is the one that stayed underground for several years. When it comes out, and it's got kind of like a bug, many legs, and it's got its hard shell. And to be coming into a adult form, it has wings, and it makes a very loud noise in the summer. So it takes the shell off, and the shell that the cicada leaves behind is actually a very famous Chinese medicine. It's good for a lot of skin problems. We call it chan tui. So this shell, if you look at it, if you pay close attention, you can see it's empty inside. So if you don't, you just take a quick look. It looks just like a cicada. So it has this whole shell. It's just this whole scene. So it says, I don't, I'm like the shell of a cicada. So Shutui is the same thing. It's the skin. It's the skin that the snake sheds. The snake sheds its whole skin, and you see it on the floor, and it may look like a snake. However, we know the shell and the snake skin, they are not either the cicada or the snake. The shadow was saying, oh, I am not the real thing that's making the action. I'm not the one in control. I'm just the shell, kind of like the shell, kind of like the snakeskin. I may look like who does the shadow belong to, so to say. So you can say the shadow belongs to the body. The shadow was because of the body, and the body shadow. So the shadow says, I may look like the body, but I am not the body. I am not the one who is in control. And the shadow says, the fire is light, is and the sunlight is when there's sunlight and there is firelight, I appear. So we have shadows, and the sun shines on us. Fire, fire, fire. We see our shadow, and so in darkness or at night, I disappear, and there's no light. There's no shadow. So the shadow's saying that my appearance or disappearance relies on whether there's light or whether there's darkness. And he says, my actions depends on the body. So I move and the body moves. And I become still when the body is still. However, the shadow continued to say, is the body the one who is actually in control? Who is the one who is controlling all of these actions? And he says, when the body come, then I come. When the body go, I go along with whatever. So when the body moves about, then I move about. So the shadow is telling his shadow. So the shadow is saying, I don't know why. I do what I do because I'm just the body's shadow. So the body controls with my actions. And I also depend on the light. And that controls my appearance or disappearance. You see? So the shadow is telling his shadow that I can't answer your question about why. I don't know why I do the things that I do, because I am not the one in control. So, what about who owns the shadow? So the body, he thinks, therefore the body can answer the shadow's question about why. And we do why would our body do certain things? So who is controlling our body? To our body's shadow, our body seems to be in control. Then we ask the question, then who is controlling our body? The easy answer we often see is certainly I am controlling my body. So we often say, I do this or I do that. Right? So I want this or I want that. Or I need this or I need that. But where does that, how does the I, when we think one step deeper, so what have these two what leads to our action? Why do we do the things that we do? For example, using myself as an example, so I spent the past a few afternoons pruning several of the bushes out in my property that's right next to my neighbor's property. So I noticed that these bushes have overgrown into my neighbor's yard. So I felt that I need to prune them so they can stay in control and they won't be extending into my neighbor's yard. So I do that because I want to be a good neighbor. So I want my neighbor to think that I am a good neighbor. So I now, after reading the Shadow's question, I started to think, what leads to my actions of pruning my bushes? It's because in my mind I have this belief that I need to take care of my property to be this is what being a good neighbor is about, being about a good neighbor. So I can continue to ask myself the question, why do I think keeping my bushes neat is a good action for being a good neighbor? So even why do I think that I should do the things that I think a good neighbor should do? So where does that come from? You know, where does that thought, that belief come from? You know, so if I live in a different culture, a different society, for instance, maybe they will have a different, very different standards of what is being a good neighbor. Or these are standards. It does not include pruning my bushes. So it's okay to let the bushes grow. Would I extend my time to pruning the bushes? Or would I rather spend time or doing something else? So, so that make me think about, I keep thinking that, what is this, when I say I do something? So what is this, what part of this is action, is these thoughts becoming actions? What part of this, where is this, this I in this whole picture? You know, where's this I in this whole picture? So we keep looking back. Shadow, think Shadow is control. So that's why he asked Shadow why. And Shadow says, I don't know. The body controls me. So you must be thinking this conversation could be easily appear in a conversation between the shadow and the body. Do you think the body might give the shadow the same answer? I don't know why. I do what I do. So who is the one who is controlling the body? So our mind controls the body. So is our mind? Is the mind and the true owner? Who is there somebody, or what? What is control? What makes up the mind? Who's controlling the mind? So that's part of the reason why I like Zhuang Tzu's story. It really is sometimes, oftentimes, is really very useful passages. It doesn't give us answers, but it's just ask us for us to go and to think for ourselves. So this is a story about shadow. Ask the shadow. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and have a wonderful week, everybody. And I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.